What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the House of Halas podcast. I am Frank. Joined with me is Nas. Nas, how we feeling, man?
Oh, just another week. One game left, babe. One
Yeah,
game left. Just
it,
get me out of here.
I know. It's so unfortunate that we're here again. And I know I've said this so many times now. I mean, dating back years. So if we have a follower who has been here since we were the Corked Up podcast, my bar for Chicago sports right now is literally just be watchable. I don't care about wins. And they have yet to meet that bar outside of like 6 games of the Nagy era since we've been doing this podcast. So unfortunately, we are here again. 1 game remaining. Just like the last couple weeks, y'all, there's really nothing to talk about game-wise. There are no takeaways. And I do want to delve in quickly on what that means. And maybe, Naz, if you want to say what that means to you, we sort of know what we have in this team, and we've known what we've had for the last year and a half. Even when Trestman was here, good DC, bad head coach. Justin was here, not a great quarterback, fun to watch every now and then. Caleb's here, the splash plays are there, the talent it jumps off the page, so just like it was in college. I feel no differently about him than I do from when we drafted him, because they're just the situation has been so dreadful that what do you take away? What do you sparse through and be like, oh, Caleb could have did it? There's nothing. It's a firestorm around him, and we're just here again. There's nothing to take away from individual games or performances from essentially anyone on this team. Nas, do you feel the same way?
I couldn't agree more. It was like we've seen that movie like a million times.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the first thing that we're going to start off with is about Thomas Brown, because when the prospect of firing Matt Eberflus arose, we were all sort of discussing what we want for head coach, what would happen, should it be Richard Hightower, and we didn't delve too deep because even before it happened, the writing was on the wall more so than any other Bears head coach midseason, obviously because it wound up happening, but there was so much smoke that there had to be fired. Like, we weren't even getting this from the Trestman era, and Trestman was objectively a worse era. But all that said, we were just so happy that Matt Eberflus was gone that I don't think any of us cared too much who the next guy was. We were just ready for that guy to be out of there. That said, Nas, you did have a take either right when it happened or right before it happened that, like, I like what's happening with Thomas Brown. I like the plays just make sense. The offense has looked better. Has it been great? No, but it's looked better. And putting him, taking him from the booth and putting him downstairs could be detrimental to the development. I don't want to say development, but just to what was happening on offense with Caleb Williams and the bunch. That proved to be 100% correct. It should have been Richard Hightower or whoever else at head coach, and leave Brown in the booth and continue to let, Caleb and the offense do their thing. That being said, Nas, I set that up to ask you, do you feel like the, I guess, value add, I don't know the right phrasing of it, is knowing that Thomas Brown absolutely not the guy now worth the last, what would it have been, 9 games of play calling and sort of development for Caleb Williams if he would have stood as OC and been in the booth calling plays?
What's the benefit of 100% knowing?
Yeah, like, do you feel like, even though you thought when it happened that he should have been the OC still calling plays from the booth, do you feel like now knowing 100% sort of supersedes that?
Yeah, 100%. I think us having to go into a full-on coaching search and not the Bears having to spend less money to retain Thomas Brown is absolutely the way I wanted to go. I feel bad for him, actually, because promising young coach, and he got put in this very much no-win situation. So like, he's going to go back to being a passing game coordinator or running backs coach for the next team because we did him so dirty in this position where we gave him a 2-level promotion when we weren't even sure if he was actually ready for the first one. So now he's going to have to kind of start over, and, he's in his 30s. So like, this is part of a career in that sport, and things like this happen, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. I feel bummed out for him, I guess.
I do as well. No, and we've sort of touched on that through tidbits too. He was put in an impossible situation. I know people are being very upset with him, and even like with some of the conservative things he was done. Even last game, he's playing for the field goal. I get it. That just seems more simmering frustration from the total thing. There's no way he comes in there and does anything more than what he's done. I mean, you could even say that when he was OC, the fact that he got them humming the way he did, not that they were fucking lighting the world on fire by any means, but he's not calling plays from his own playbook. He didn't install any of this. Nothing in this offense is his. And to be honest, he didn't even like help instill it. Like by all accounts, when he was the passing game coordinator, he wasn't doing anything. He was on the scout team sometimes, helping out playing like nickel and which again, that happens sometimes when you're just an assistant to an assistant and you're just sort of around to gain knowledge, whatever. They wanted to keep the guy in the building because they did value him. So whatever he could do on a week-to-week basis was good for him. But I'm right there with you. We did do him dirty. Part of me though, Nas, I don't want this to come across as pushback to you because I agree with you. It is good that we now know 100% the McCaskies can't fucking cheap out and be like, this guy was in the building and we loved him. But part of me is like, I think we feel that way because we know how incompetent and inept this organization is. Because I sort of think back, what was the last like crude business decision that a Chicago team made? It was when the Cubs fired Ricky Renteria to go get Joe Madden. And we saw how that turned out. It turned out for the better. Since then, and even before then, that doesn't happen. Stuff like what we're envisioning had we not promoted Thomas Brown to head coach, it's probably what would have happened. And be like, oh, we love the guy and he's great, he's awesome, and it would have crashed and burned after a year or two. But again, if we were a real organization, whether or not we promoted him to head coach, they would have just cut ties with everyone, clean whole house, do the whole thing, and move on, go to the coaching search. But we are so scorned by how bad of an organization this is from the top down that we're like, oh, we just had to see it. We had to be 100% certain because this organization is full of pussies. And not for nothing, Nas, I don't want to get too far off track, but the fan base is too. Because do you remember when they fired Ricky Renteria? How everyone's, oh my God, I can't believe people are cheering for a man who lost his job and he just won 80-something games and it's a young, promising team. And they probably would have done the same thing with Thomas Brown had he not gotten a shot or gotten there. Like this town sort of helps cultivate, or not, I don't want to say cultivate, but like they nurture this town full of pussies that's just like, oh no, we have to do right by everyone. Dude, the one thing that I always go to is Bill Belichick, and this isn't maybe morally or ethically always great, but he was fucking cutting players the day before the Super Bowl on Christmas. Like, it just is what it is. When you have to make a decision, you have to make it, and you go for it. And so, again, I'm right there with you. I'm glad that we know 100% he's not the guy, but the fact that we feel the need to see it that way is just proof that we know something is inherently wrong with the organization.
100%. I think a little bit is this town, despite all of the sports misery that we've gone through, we're not as tough a fan base to please as people think. Our bar is so low right now that we are just looking for competency, not excelling at any level. We're just looking for competency. So we needed to see someone absolutely fall on their face to make us supportive of the decision to move on, which is wild because that's just what we've been dealing with for, pretty much a decade. I mean, the Cubs hiring Theo was the only 2 steps ahead of everybody else move that we've made this century through any Chicago organization.
No, 100% agree. I 100% agree. And to your point, to sort of top that off, I think that's why people still struggle with the Justin Fields thing, is because he didn't completely fall flat on his face, but you just knew it, right? Like, he's average at best, not consistent, but because he wasn't, I don't know, think of any horrible quarterback that we've had throughout, our fandom as Bears fans, because he wasn't Cordell Stewart. Like, they were like, you had to keep giving him a shot. Like, this fan base falls in love with that sort of, I don't even know if you call it unknown, but I'm not awful, but I'm average. I mean, it's every fan base. You listen, I have uncles who are White Sox fans that still talk about Joe Creedy like he's fucking, who knows? Just the greatest third baseman of all time. It's insane. Nas, let's move on though, because there is a discussion to be had. We talked about the head coach. No one's in agreement to bring him back. I think that was just sort of the check off a box. Thomas Brown's done. Thank you for your service. I'm very sorry that we put you through this. I'm sorry that you got the Chicago stink on you now. The bigger conversation to be had here is Ryan Poles, because I don't know if not only a fan base, but me personally have done a 180 on someone this fast when you sort of tear down the nuts and bolts and sort of look at what the guy's done as me. I just, going into the year, I don't think you could have forecasted me feeling this way at the end of the year. Nazi, where are you at with Ryan Poles as it stands? I mean, you can take this as like, I'm still sort of sorting through, or do you feel like he should be gone? Whatever you feel, what do you feel about Ryan Poles December 28th, 2024?
I think he's got to go. Unfortunately, the mishiring of coaches, the misevaluating his own team. Like, the O-line is in such bad shape in terms of depth. It's quite shocking to like see it with your own eyes. And yeah, I just don't. I do not trust that guy to properly evaluate this team, and for that reason, I'm out.
Oh, we're Shark Tanking it. I love that. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I think there's a lot at play. You touched on the O-line depth. And the other portion is, even if he, like, let's just say he guaranteed to get that right or get it better. Like, if there was some way to wave a magic wand and be like, all right, we know next year there's going to be an above average to good group. Do we trust him with the next coaching hire? Like, that's sort of the next level to me, like the level higher. You look at what's happened, and I know we've touched on this in some capacity in the past, but hiring Eberflus in and of itself isn't like the mortal sin to me. That doesn't damn you to hell for me. It was marrying himself to Eberflus this past offseason and just, yeah, well, no, we didn't reach out to Harbaugh. He's the coach of Michigan. I mean, it was all of the doubling down, and then even the doubling down on the offensive line. This is the best depth we've ever had. This is the best offensive line group we've ever put together. I mean, maybe it is because it's not saying much, but I mean, Jesus Christ, dude, this speaking that way about this offensive line going into the season is abhorrent and inexcusable. But, you know, we're in a crucial time where a year two player in Caleb Williams, again, I don't think he needs much development, but to surround him with what you did this year from a coaching standpoint is disgusting. You know, they spoke so glowingly about this process that brought in Shane Waldron, that did not bring in Cliff Kingsbury, that did not bring in Cohen, that wound up going to the Buccaneers. That, I mean, all these guys who look phenomenally better than what we had in Waldron. I mean, honestly, not even hiring Thomas Brown, who was in the building. Like, you're lucky you even got the guy as a passing game coordinator, because he should have went somewhere else, if I'm being honest. And it makes me wonder, though, Nas, is, yeah, I'm not advocating for Cliff Kingsbury to be the head coach, but you know, something that we touched on when they traded Justin Fields and like, oh, they did right by him and the cachet that it brings to Ryan Poles and the whole thing. We know what that brought, and it probably brought some glowing reviews amongst agents and stuff. But now that I'm looking around the league, let's just say Ben Johnson doesn't want to come here. You know, everyone's like, oh, we're going to get Ben. And I would assume we're going to make a push for him, but he has the option to say no. He has options here. So if you go down the list of like, maybe Cohen is the guy, maybe Cliff Kingsbury's the guy, did you sort of burn that bridge if you're Ryan Poles? You told him no at OC. Now all of a sudden you want them in as your head coach. I'm not saying one way or another. I guess what I'm saying is Ryan Poles, I don't think has built the cachet that I think we think he did. And you just couple that with not only not trusting him with evaluating who the hell is going to be the next head coach anyway, but I think this is going to be a whole episode in and of itself in the offseason. I don't know, outside of maybe cornerback, which he didn't really build because Jalen was already here. I don't know if there's a position group that's gotten better under his watch. I don't count Caleb. Any GM takes Caleb. 32 out of 32 take Caleb in this situation. I truly do not count that. That was not some elite scouting that he pulled out of his ass. I don't think a position group has gotten better. As a matter of fact, I think a lot have downgraded. Maybe receiver. He pulled off the DJ Moore trade. Roma Dunze's there. Keenan isn't Keenan, but it's still, if he's your third guy. Everywhere else, what has gotten better since he took over?
Yeah, he's wiped out all credibility with me.
That's what I mean.
It's like, I mean, the way you just listed it, I'm like, nope. Like,
yeah.
Like, any guy that's really good on our team, like our elite guys, those are ready-made dudes. Those aren't guys that came up and like became a superstar under Bears coaching or Bears development. It's kind of shocking.
I know,
and it makes the Claypool trades like the shit like that even worse.
It does. That's just fuel to the fire at that point. Those are like cherries on top. And the thing is, though, Nas, is I found myself, and I'm sure you have as well, because we liked Poles. Like, going into this year, we liked what he built. We thought he really built something. And there were times where I was like, man, and this was more of a critique for me for Eberflus and the staff of like, well, who has even developed in these systems? Who's gotten better? Again, you got to zoom out. Who the fuck hired this coaching staff? Like, and that's essentially what we're talking about right now. Like, once you get rid of that, okay, so the coaching staff is gone. We're down to the nuts and bolts of things, and you're just relying on talent with an interim head coach. It's not there. And I sort of think about some of these red flags that were along the way, because not that I, was like anywhere near out or even necessarily pegged it as a negative at the time, but I wasn't in love with the Tremaine Edmonds signing. I know he fit the cover 2 a little bit better at middle linebacker, but even to this day, when Jack Sanborn gets in there, he makes more plays than him. I don't know what PFF says, but just watching football, Jack Sanborn seems to be a better linebacker in any scheme because he did it in a different scheme before him. So when it had, like going into that offseason when they signed Tremaine Edmonds, I kept thinking, like, one, why don't we try Roquan in the middle? Not that I thought that was a bad trade. I didn't mind getting rid of him. He wasn't necessarily a system fit, but you didn't even try him in the middle. And then Jack Sanborn gets in here in the middle, and you're like, hey, maybe we got a little something here on an undrafted free agent. And they're just like, nah, never mind. And that goes, like, I'm reminded of that because you talked about the self-scouting. The self-scouting in this team is some of the poorest that I've ever seen. Because, again, it's the same thing with the Swift. I mean, Swift is the Tremaine Edmonds signings of running backs. Why did we need not a running back? Had you got Saquon, had you got Derrick Henry, those are the elite guys that you go after. We got a guy that looks no different, if not worse, than Khalil Herbert and Roshan did last year. That was a lateral move at best to pay quadruple the amount.
I mean, it's just shocking to see the Eagles drop a player and then the Bears to pick him up. Like, the best running team of the decade is dropping this guy who had a good season for them. No one just does that for no reason. Like, it gets frustrating when you go down the line of free agency, because it's like, we didn't really need a burner with our running back group. We didn't need a burner. It was nice. Having a pass catcher is nice. These are luxury items. We needed someone with real vision. Like, how many times do we need to see Swift just banging his body into the O-line without really like a game plan or like patience to see where the cutbacks are and where the holes are? Like, and I get it, the O-line's not great. They're not the worst O-line I've ever seen when it comes to run blocking.
Agreed.
They're just not. I think the numbers would back me up on that. It's just, and then like the play calling on top of the scheme is just outrageous. DeAndre Swift, notorious bad inside runner, and we just keep just pounding it away to the point where we think Roshan, who might be slower than me, and I'm very slow, somehow is a better inside runner than DeAndre Swift, who are paying $10 million a year.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
No, agreed. And it was just one of those things where, like, was I like taking crazy pills? I'm not trying to paint Khalil Herbert to be any sort of elite running back by any means, but for the price, he was a much better player and fit for what they were doing. He looked good. And I mean, I know he had dealt with some injury problems over the last few years, but he's a fucking running back. They all do. So I don't know. That's just that was a random. The Tremaine Edmonds and DeAndre Swift sort of were random examples. We can go down the list again. I think that'll be an absolute a banger of an episode in the offseason when we go down the list, like what did he actually even hit on when you take the veil off, and sort of, I guess, stop using the excuse of like, well, he had to tear everything down. He did, but it's year 3 now. It does not take, this isn't the NBA. This isn't the Sixers tanking for 17 years to finally get it done. You rebuild in 2-3 years in this league, and he hasn't done it. So for those reasons, long-winded reasons, I am also out. Nas, anything else on the Ryan Poles front before we discuss a little bit of the coaching search?
The DJ Moore contract is something I feel like we've kind of just like tucked under the rug. If anybody's wondering, I know everyone saw it was like a 4-year extension, and everybody like kind of like, oh yes, that was a great signing. Then he started pouting and like, oh, this is actually awful. There is an out after two seasons from now.
Okay.
So he can play next year and the year after, and then there's an $8 million cap hit to cut him. So I just want to temper everybody. It's like, he's not going to be like this for 5 years. He's probably going to get traded at some point, I would think, or cut. I mean, but I mean that I would say that also has hurt Poles significantly. Signing an extension to a guy and then him just being an absolute bitch
Yeah.
on the team. Like, and it's a shitty thing because like you never heard a peep about DJ Moore his whole career. And then all of a sudden he gets this massive extension, which he knows is going to be the big contract of his career, and just goes straight into pouting and the disease of me when we haven't even accomplished anything. It's just crazy. It's just wild. And it's like, do we realize how many turnovers, like, and maybe I get that he liked Justin a lot, but do we realize how bad this team would be if Justin was turning the ball over 20 times a year?
Yeah. I mean, you think about,
Truly.
No, you think about the amount of sacks that Caleb has taken, and we were texting this yesterday. Like, the fact that he has not fumbled nearly as much, I don't know what the exact rate is, but just watching games, Justin fumbled once every, 3 sacks. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, what can Caleb account for? Like 13 turnovers all year?
Yeah.
Like, Justin's in the 20s every year when he's a full-time starter. It's just, and turnovers, listeners, turnovers dictate winning and losing way more than sacks do. Like, obviously it's not fun to watch and it feels morale-wise it's shitty, but I mean those dictate who wins and loses way more than what sacks do.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think to the DJ Moore point, I think the most disappointing thing for me is, like, I get being frustrated with the system. I get, not getting your numbers that you want. Wide receivers, all, whether they show it or not, have that diva to them. They're the least in control of the skill position groups. Like, they're dependent on quite a bit to get what they need. But the one thing you can control is your attitude. Like, I know that sounds fucking corny and like, the self-help, but like, come on, man. The fact that he was doing that week 1 and week 2, I would totally understand, like, the last couple of weeks if he just went a little off the rails, because this has been a frustrating season. But we've been talking about this literally since the beginning of the year. And again, speaking of what you can control, it's also effort, man. Like, he's quitting on routes. He's quitting on plays. Like, the one thing that, if you're the biggest Justin Fields fan and you hate Caleb and he's a gay cuck boy from whatever, like, you hate the guy. The one thing that he's already probably elite at is extending plays and making plays on the run and out of the pocket. The fact that DJ Moore is not anywhere to be seen almost ever on those plays is all effort. That is all lack of effort on DJ Moore's part. And again, that's the shit that you can control. That's when, like, when Keenan Allen's talking, I don't agree with the way he said it and everything, but when he's talking about, like, what's on tape and I'm sort of auditioning for the whole 32, that's kind of what he's talking about, is just because you did not get the ball, just because, on a screenplay, it wasn't for you, what other people are watching when they're looking to re-sign you or trade for you, how are you blocking? How are you hustle? What's your effort looking like? And DJ has had none of that. So to your point of, like, he may be traded, that's kind of why I'm pissed too, because I asked Jack, maybe, I don't know, episode or 2 ago, like, would you be shocked? Like, we're not in love with anyone on this team. Would you be hurt or shocked if DJ was traded for, like, a 2 and a 4? I wouldn't give a fuck. But that being said, he's hurting his trade value. And that's what's pissing me off too. It's like, you're not the same DJ Moore on a bad Panthers team that netted what we, like, part of a big trade. I don't know what you get out of the guy. Now, I'm not saying he'd be like a 6th-round pick, but you are actively hurting your own trade value. The only thing I think we have at our disposal is that it is still a team-friendly contract, so you're getting a good receiver.
I mean, yeah. The number is not terrible.
Right.
It's slated right where a very productive DJ Moore should be slated.
Yep.
100%.
But no, I mean, to your point, that's just another trickle-down effect of this, this terrible locker room culture, this terrible, I don't know if there's an overarching word for it, but he's been another very frustrating thing. But again, Ryan Poles tied himself to him. Anything that Ryan Poles has tied himself to has not worked out at all. Literally not one. It's been all bad. Like, when I see people on Twitter, like, grasping at straws, like, well, Kevin Byard was a good signing. Shut up, dude. He was. He's been fine. But we're talking about safety, and then Kyler Gordon. That was a good trade. Yes, a safety and a nickel corner has been like, come on, man. What are we doing here, bro? Rip the Band-Aid off, reset everything. I mean, at that point, you're putting your trust in Kevin Warren, which some people don't like. I don't know. I still don't know too much about him based on college and whatever. But yeah, it's been bad. Nas, I think that brings us to the very last topic, which we may change our mind. I'm going to try to not to. I'm going to try to be very consistent in my philosophy and what I'm looking for in this team in the future. But we've got to have a temperature check on what we want right now for the next Bears head coach, whether it's a specific person, whether it's sort of a specific philosophy. We can sort of go wherever with it. Nas, December 28th, 2024. How does Nas feel, or what does Nas think that the Bears need to do with the open head coach spot right now?
I'm only in favor of Ben Johnson if all of our draft equity and free agency money goes towards the trenches. If that is not where the money is going, then I want Vrabel, because I've seen that guy coach with less and still be successful. So, and I know Jack's somewhere saying, "Oh, you had AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. What are you talking about?" It's like, yeah, because two guys make up a whole fucking team, buddy. Jesus Christ. The guy took the Kansas City Chiefs to overtime with Malik Willis during the prime KC offensive years. So I just want to point out that guy I've seen literally do more with less. And if we're going to keep holes and he's going to keep drafting shitty and keep acquiring shitty players, then I want Vrabel. If we're actually going to invest in what's going to make this team successful and build around Caleb, because everything else, the trickle-down effect of those two lines being better is going to make Poles look a lot better if he actually decides to go that direction. Then I would love Ben Johnson, truly. Those are my top two candidates. It's not particularly close.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't hate Flores because I would love a mix-up of the defense. But that's just me wanting a change of scenery because I'm just sick of 3rd and 13s getting converted. What about you, Frankie?
The logic checks out for me. I agree with you there. In order to trap myself or box myself in logically where I've been over the last few years, and it's not to say that Mike Vrabel wouldn't make this team watchable, but I'm ready for a good offense. And to me, my route to get there is Ben Johnson. I think regardless of who the hell you hire, the trenches on both sides have to be addressed. That's what wins ball games. Look at what Detroit does. You look at the good teams, they win in the trenches. That's why while Kansas City isn't the prettiest watch anymore, look at their offensive and defensive lines. They dominate. They absolutely dominate. You brought up the Eagles earlier. That's why Saquon's having the year that he's having. It's not to downplay his skill by any means. We know how good he was physically. He's finally got an offensive line, and he is balling out. That's what you do. You talk about multipliers that Ryan Poles loves to do. The trenches are the multiplier. That's how you win. That's why people think Troy Aikman was a good quarterback, because he had the greatest offensive line in the history of the sport for 10 years. It is what it is. That being said, so my answer is right now, Ben Johnson. I'm rolling with him. I will not be angry if Mike Vrabel is the choice. Can I just say, though, because I have nothing different to say outside of that with those two, I'm a little more open, and call me crazy and call me stupid and slap me virtually here, Nas. I'm a little open to Liam Cohen. Am I taking the crazy pills? I like what he's doing with that offense in Tampa. He would not be close to your point of the top two, but let's just say Vrabel goes elsewhere, someone else woos him, and Ben Johnson says, listen, I see the dysfunction firsthand being in Detroit. I'm a fucking hop, skip, and a jump away from Chicago. I don't want to be here. I'm going to the Raiders. I don't know. He's going somewhere else. Well, I mean, that's a bad choice. They're just as bad as us, but he's going elsewhere. And then, I mean, would Cohen be your third? Well, I guess Flores would be your third, but an offensive guy. Who would be the next offensive guy off the list for you? I think Cohen is for me.
Yeah, I like the Liam Cohen. I like the Liam Cohen move. I'm not gonna lie. I like what Todd Monken's doing in Baltimore.
I don't hate it.
The more I've watched, I didn't love it last year, but it seems to be like hitting. And maybe it's just because the Lamar Derrick combo is just, there is no answer for that, and it's going to make anybody look good. And I mean, if we hired someone out of the Rams scheme or someone out of the Viking scheme, I wouldn't hate it. It's just those are all so far away for me, but from these top two, I would probably put Flores like in a tier of his own. It would probably be like those top two, Flores in the second tier, which is still very far, and then all the guys that you said, like Liam Cohen, in that fourth tier.
Okay.
In that third tier.
I don't hate that because I think that's exactly where I'm at as well. Give me, and maybe we'll end it here. The Bears go through the coaching search. Ben Johnson says no. He was interested, but he goes elsewhere. He does not want to come here. Vrabel, they're looking for an offensive guy. I don't even, honestly, outside of our power rankings, I don't think we're hiring him. It's all where the smoke, there's fire. Everyone's saying offensive guy, all the reporting. I don't think Vrabel will be here, unfortunately. Cliff Kingsbury is announced as the head coach of your 2025 Chicago Bears. How does Nas feel? I mean, what would that be? And that would be in February? He would be announced. How are you feeling on Valentine's Day?
I feel okay.
Okay.
I would be like, all right, whatever. I feel fine because I know two things. I know Cliff knows Caleb's strengths and weaknesses, and he is going to build an offense accordingly. I also know that defenses are going to catch up to that offenses accordingly. But at least we'll get like 8 games where we're just like, oh my God, offensive powerhouse, blah, 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 blah. And it would be great. So I'd feel fine. And again, if the O-line is just decent.
Yep.
And we're not running receivers in the same area, this will be just fine. We'll be just fine. Yep. Caleb's going to be great.
Well,
can we get some route trees? Can we get some diverse route trees?
So what you're telling me right now, Nas, is you don't enjoy our wide receivers being running backs.
I'm not loving the DJ Moore screen game 6 times a game. I'm like always looking at a stat line and it's like, 7 catches, 87 yards. I'm just like, that's actually way better than I thought it was. And then I forgot 3 of those catches were for net -1 yard.
Yeah. No, it's
pretty wild.
It's bad. Wait, Nas, I lied. I have one last question because I know where we're at, but I think we'll put a bow on it this way. If you are Kevin Warren or whoever else is going to be in that hiring group, hopefully it's just him and Poles. So I don't know exactly how the conversation would come about, but by all means, it will happen. Your top 2 are Vrabel and Ben Johnson. So if Vrabel or Ben Johnson come to you as Kevin Warren and say, I will come here, but I have to pick my GM. You're saying yes to those 2, correct? Like that's not an option.
Yeah, 100%.
Are you saying yes to everyone? I know we're out on polls, but in terms of that sort of power for a head coach, are you saying yes to everyone, or is it only those 2?
The person I'd consider that for is Flores.
Okay.
Just because there's certain criteria that he's going to want players to meet. And I want him paired with someone who's used to looking at at football through the same lens. I just don't even know what lens Poles is looking through because we're soft. We couldn't be softer.
I know.
That's the biggest issue. We're dropping balls. We can't block. We can't tackle. We're soft. And I just that's kind of why I want Vrabel or Flores, because I just know the toughness level of this team would go up. And I love Ben Johnson. I do. But we don't have a Penei Sewell to set the tone for the team.
Yep.
We just don't. So it's like, how are we going to get that physicality, which we absolutely need? We are not a dome team. For the final 2 months of this season, if we are to be taken seriously, we are going to have to be very physical. And it's not going to be Caleb spraying it all around. It's just not.
Yeah.
So we need to figure that out.
The other thing to your point is we're not going to have, whoever we hire, we're not going to have a Dan Campbell. You listed Penei Sewell, and there's other guys who set that tone as well. You're correct. But Dan he's the heartbeat of that team that gets them to be physical. And part of me, I don't want to change him. I'm already changing my mind live on air here. But that is why I'm intrigued with the Vrabel, but the potential of having Vrabel is because, to your point, that you're going to get that. You're going to get that instilled in the culture. We're going to bite kneecaps. We're going to fucking twist ankles. There's a possibility that Ben Johnson is Mike McDaniel, a phenomenal play caller, really. But I mean, you look at, they're soft too. They're a better
Mm-hmm.
team and the scheme wise, and they're fun when it's warm. But like, that is a possibility that we have that with that hire. Which again, to me, that would still meet my bar. Be fucking watchable for like 90% of the season, and I'm a happy customer. Then I'll raise the expectations accordingly. We have not gotten there yet, so the signing I think still will meet the expectation. But in terms of building something with Caleb on his rookie contract, getting him into that big contract come year 4 or 5. Yeah, well, I don't know, man. See, this is
it's tough. I don't love play calling head coaches.
Yep.
I don't love it. Game management's always an issue. You're pretty much subcontracting the other side of the ball.
Yep.
And there's very few guys who can balance it, like McVay and Shanahan. But like it does come at a price, because I know Shanahan is in the special teams meetings. I know he's in the defensive meeting. I don't know if he's like in the meetings day to day, but I know he's meeting with those guys with the style of football that he wants to play.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know if Ben Johnson does that. I know Mike McDaniel does not do that.
Yep.
So
he's an offensive coordinator at head coach.
I know. My dream scenario would be he gets fired, we get Vrabel, and bring in Mike McDaniel to run the offense.
Oh, yeah.
That would, because those two meshed together, I actually do think would make a great partnership, because of physicality, but then also like the genius in scheme.
Agreed.
I think it would be a great marriage if Vrabel could tolerate Mike McDaniel. I think it would be
I think he could,
and vice versa. I don't know. You got one dude who's a kind of a meathead, and then one dude who's quirky. It's like,
I don't know what Ben Johnson's. I haven't heard him talk too much outside of like the very bland press conferences that all coordinators give you. But I feel like you have that sort of with Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson right now. That dynamic can exist and is can be successful. Nas, we're in for a fucking long offseason. I wish I could say I'm looking forward to the offseason episodes, because we will have some fun ones. We get really goofy and silly, and that'll be fun. There's some playoff stuff to talk about, obviously, as these games get going. But we're going to take deep dives, again, into the poll stuff. We can probably do, like, position groups, especially if he stays. If he gets fired, I don't know how much it'll be even relevant. But if he stays, if he's retained, I want to take a deep dive into every single position group from when he took over to now, and what the hell did he even do? Because I don't want to get too into it, but he's on the hot seat now. It's not going to get any cooler because he hired a new coach. We may be living in a world where he gets fired after 1 year with the new coach and there's more overlap. So we'll get there when we get there. Nas, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Please, Caleb, get to the offseason healthy. Yeah. Please don't be rehabbing.
Do we bench him?
That's all I ask.
Week 18?
I mean, if I was the coach, that's what I would do.
Same.
But I have a feeling that's not going to happen, because to Caleb's credit, he's going to want to show that he is not quitting on the team. And the way that he's been treated by the media has been fucking awful.
Yep.
And if for some reason he did get benched and it wasn't even his decision, it would fuck him over, to be honest. People would be calling him soft.
That's a really good point. I had not considered that.
So as much as I would love for him to sit, he's not going to sit. We just need to accept that. It's just not straight up. I don't even think it's a consideration. So I'm just praying that he gets through that game. And yeah, and don't win. Please don't win. Let's just get, like, come on, just get, we've come this far. We have come this far. Just fucking lose this game. Get the best pick possible. Whatever.
Can we lose like we did the first time, though? Like, just be fun. Like, last game, dude, Thomas Brown, pull some fucking rabbits out of the hat, man.
Dude, I know we just said we weren't going to talk about the game, but another 2-minute drill with 3 timeouts.
That was bad.
It's like, what are we doing? And another game where 2-minute drill, 3 timeouts, and we run out of time. Oh, well,
yeah.
Except we get to a 4th down and long, and we have 1 timeout again to end the game because we refuse to use it until we're under 50 seconds, which is just wild.
It's weird.
It's so weird. And I don't care what anybody says, Thomas Brown being on the field has hurt him.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question that this team is playing worse with him on the field calling plays. And it was just so short-sighted to put him in that position when we were just starting, or there was like glimmers of a groove that could have been found. And it was just like, why not just fucking put Eric Washington in this position? The defense is doing the same shit we've been doing all year. He's not changing anything.
Yep.
Why can't we make him the head coach? I don't get it.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, it's, again, you called it before it even happened that you did not want Thomas Brown as the head coach for those exact reasons. You got called racist. You got called a lot of things in the comment section. Listen, I did not confirm nor deny it, but listen, you were right, man. Nas, let's try to enjoy. I'm in a fantasy championship here, baby. I'm playing for like $1,200. I need Chase Brown to shit the bed. All right. So I'm paying attention close to these games today, tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Enjoy yourself, Nas. We will coordinate. Because we're recording right now to pull the veil back on a Saturday. I have no idea when the next episode will be. We'll coordinate all that. I have some really good episode topics. I think me, Jack, and Nas will come to not a conclusion, a schedule of what we want things to look like. But I do think, I mean, like off the top of my head, a polls episode, 100%. The sort of weird media treatment of Caleb Williams, I think, deserves its own deep dive into. So there's quite a lot to get to. I think in the next few weeks, though, I do just want to have fun and talk about other teams. Let's talk about the playoffs. Let's, talk about potential free agents. I don't know, but I have to get away from this team for a little bit because this is fucking depressing.
Yeah. If Caleb walks under his own power off the field after the last game, I'll be drinking during the next pod, guaranteed.
Oh, 100%.
I'll be celebrating.
I'm in. I will be right there with you. I'll get some tequila.
Some things might offend Jack and his, his white sensitivities, but I'm willing to sacrifice for the team.
I will be right there with you. I will pick up what you're putting down because I am ready to just fucking call him a libtard all episode, and we're just gonna go crazy. It's gonna be great.
I'm just gonna say erroneous shit. So how does it feel, the fact that you've decided that you wanted Justin instead of Caleb? Just say shit that he never said. Just be like, oh man, remember when you said Braxton Jones was a top 5 left tackle?
Wait, so you're gonna do to him what I do to you in our group chat with Kevin and
Facts.
And Eugene. Facts. I do that all the time. It's the greatest thing in the world. And it took you like a year to catch on. You'd be like, when did I say this? And I just say random shit.
Took me a minute. Yeah. I'm a slow learner. But as Sansa Stark said, I learned.
Oh, man. All right, Nas. Thanks for joining, man. Looking forward to the next episode again. It may be in a week or two. Who knows? It's a miserable time to be a Bears fan. Unless fucking Caleb tosses for like 500, breaks 5,000 or 4,000 yards on the season, and we just have a quick emergency Bears-Packers pod. It's not going to happen.
If he breaks the single season passing record,
we will have drinks on that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. All right, Nas. Appreciate you, man. Later, everybody.
Bye.